Back to the chase, back to the grind. Fresh perspective, a new angle to find. Think deeper, question smarter, follow the signs. Welcome back to Finding Treasure Inside.
Hi guys, and welcome back to Finding Treasure Inside. I'm Heather Smith, and we are on a journey to decipher this word search in the past and future box. So if you haven't seen word search part 1, you'll want to go back and watch that. I'll try to link a spot up there for you. Word search part 1 is going to lay out for you the first half of how we get to where we are. And if you pick up in the middle, it's going to be like jumping in the middle of a conversation, and you may not know where all of the information was obtained from. So you may want to take a look at the word search part 1 before we get started. So this is why I think the past and future box is definitely in South Lake Tahoe. The following presentation is my opinion. I do not have a box. I do not have any confirmation besides the brain in my head, the eyes in my head, and the boots on the ground experience that I have. And I am not correct yet. No one can be correct until there is a box obtained based on the information provided. So let's jump right in. So what we went over in the last video is the first 8 games that were listed in the chapter. So in video 1, I went over and explained how the 80s references were woven into the chapter, and that was going to give us direction and how to work the word search. So I did the first 8 games in the last word search. When I left off, we were finished with the location of the trails that were in the word search, and now we're down to the Windows surface that was mentioned. That is not a game, but I felt like this was a good nudge in the direction of we're really going to have to dive below the surface at this point. So it's kind of like we cleared a level. This one's going to get a little bit more difficult for you. You're going to have to look and think deeper, and you're going to need to look below the surface level in order to be able to extract the information from here. So the next game is game number 9, Trouble. In Trouble, the thing that becomes important, you are moving 4 pieces around the board. We are literally going to move 4 pieces. It's not a random selection of the 4 pieces. I'll explain how I got there. Monopoly is next. And Monopoly, you roll the dice. And roll the dice is go ahead and take your chance. Try it. You move clockwise. I'll also mention in Trouble, you move clockwise. That is how I know the movement that we're supposed to make. He also mentions that they work around the clock. And so with Monopoly, you then pay attention to properties and railroads, because those are the properties that you are looking to purchase. And rail is going to become important as a place you need to focus your attention, or something you need to see is there. So in this next step, we actually kind of do 3 games. It's almost like he gave us 3 different games so that we understood this clockwise and this movement, because it isn't something you would normally do in a word search. So we have this one completed. We're going to think deeper. We're going to do Trouble and Monopoly. And the next one that also goes with it is Twister. This is where he's telling us there's a twist. So we do have to perform a twist in this word search. Now, you can't just randomly start moving things around. Everything has to have a rhyme and reason to it. So we are going to twist, and we are going to twist clockwise. There is a piece that is going to tell us exactly when to stop the movement. It is a 180-degree rotation. And so that is where we're going to start. So this is where we left off. These were our trails. If you, again, have not seen part 1, you need to see part 1 to understand where all this came from. So next, what we're going to do, I did notice one of the reasons people may have missed this step. I'll say I did not have the instructions to tell me to do this step. I actually figured out how to do the word search on my own, and there was something that kind of gave me the indication that there was going to need to be a rotation. The reason that I felt that way is because of mainly the K2K trail. That's the yellow line you see on your screen. The K2K trail was actually in the word search as KNVK, which indicated the K2K trail on the Nevada side. And I was looking at this map, and number 3 up there is California, which is on your left. Number 2 over there has Nevada, which is on your right. And the K2K trail is on the left, which is the California side. And I recognized that, well, if this were visually representing our area in any way, then the K2K trail would have to be on the right side of the map, not the left. So that got me interested a little bit into thinking. And then I thought about those two lines that are parallel right there in the middle. That is state divider. And visually, even if you did recognize that this might be some sort of a map, the visual representation of the map is that that would probably be the gondola and the state line, which are running parallel to each other, which is what you see here in this map. So a lot of people would not have thought about that turn unless you recognize the KNBK trail as being on the wrong side. And as a teacher of geometry for 12 years, rotations are something that I see. Any rotation or translation, I can visually see it ahead of time. And so I recognized that there looked like there could be some alignment that happened if we were to do this movement. I didn't have a reason for doing it at the time, just my intuition. So when I found the instructions in the book with the 80s references, it excited me because I had the confirmation I had been doing it right. But if you've gone through the text and got the instructions first, so basically I kind of put this thing together. It's kind of like I went to Walmart and bought one of those shelves that have, I don't know, 15 or 20 pieces and about 100 screws. And I just decided instead of reading the instructions, I was just going to put the thing together. Luckily, as I did the word search, I seem to have done it correctly. That is one of the reasons it was much easier for me to locate the 80s references, because I knew what I had already done. And I recognized that it was telling me to do that after the fact. So we're going to take this word search. Here's the reason I also knew that I had been instructed to do so. If you look in the upper left-hand corner, you see the word TURN, and it's up and to the right, which indicated to me that I was going to need to turn this towards the right. And then I began to wonder, how do I turn it? If I just turn the whole thing, then it's just going to be an upside down, or it's just going to be orientated different, but it's still going to be the same word search and the same map. So I saw in the left-hand corner, it says turn it. And so twice he said turn. So I decided that that was what I was supposed to do. And again, most of it was based on the KNBK Nevada side of K2K being on the wrong side was my initial indicator. Then I saw this in the word search and I said, you know what? He's telling us to turn it. So that is how I came to the process of turning it, as opposed to having read it in the instructions first and then done it, I guess, what you would maybe call the appropriate way. So here's what I'm going to do. The next slide I had was just to show you it already rotated. But I felt like many people, I know a lot of my students don't see translations and transformations as easily as someone who works with them like I do all the time. So what I decided was that I was going to do this on the screen with you so you could see. Now, how do I know what to rotate? Do I just rotate everything? If you'll notice, I'm rotating what you don't see in the picture right now, which is everything on the lower left corner. The reason for that is because in the game of Trouble, there are 4 pieces that have to move. Also, in the game we're coming up on that's going to connect to this is Sorry. Sorry used to have 4 pieces back in the earlier days, which would have been in the 80s. The more modern version has 3, but the 4 is consistent between Trouble and Sorry. So I'm going to go back and show you there. This is what I'm going to be moving. I'm going to avoid the numbers 1 through 5 because I don't want them to be interfering with the map. I'm also going to I'm going to make sure and take that center crosshairs, because the center crosshairs was how I knew I had kept it aligned as I rotated it, because I'm physically doing it with my hand rather than having AI or something else do it. So the 4 pieces that I'm going to be moving are the K2K trail, this piece and this piece of the Van Sickle Rim Connector Trail. And I'm going to go at this state part of the state divider. Here is another part of why I recognized this movement had to happen. Once I realized that we might be looking at a picture, I realized the name on those two lines was state and divider. It didn't say gondola and state divider. It said state and divider. Well, when you physically go to cross a state line, you don't cross two places. You cross a single line. So that is when I recognized that this piece was likely going to need to go around and align to that piece. So that is also part of what led me to do this without having been told to do so in the instructions previously, because I didn't have the instructions. So I'm going to take my cutting tool here. I'm going to take this trail. I am going to keep a copy of that crosshairs because I do want to make sure the alignment is perfect when I rotate this. So I'm going to grab this and make a copy. And I'm going to bring it over to this slide. So when I paste it on here, it's going to look just like it did on the other side. Then I'm going to have to do the rotation and line it up. So I'll show you how I ensure that I'm not, because it's not just an arbitrary, let me circle it around and throw it over there and see what happens. We need to make sure that we're staying proportional, we're staying aligned as we do this. So there is our piece. So in order to do a 180-degree rotation, I need to take this blue arrow in the bottom right-hand corner and swing it around up to the red X in the top left-hand corner. That would be an 180-degree rotation. And then the reason I kept the crosshairs is once I do that, then I use the crosshairs to make sure that I've aligned it correctly so that it is in the place that it's rotated directly around that exact point in the middle. So I'm going to grab it, I'm going to rotate it. So there's our rotation. And then I'm going to align it. And as I noticed that the crosshairs is a little small, I lost a little bit in the sizing there. So I'm going to size it back out because these should fit right with each other. And there you have the 180-degree rotation about the center in the clockwise motion for this. Now, why does that seem interesting to me? Why did that make things look very interesting? So here's what I'll show you. Here's what became interesting to me. They're all on top of each other right there. And I recognized something, and I'll show you what I recognized. What you really need to keep your eyes on and pay attention to is these two dots right here, because what those two dots are connecting is this M shape. That M shape is really what, because it was in the area I was looking, and I recognized it on the trail. Now, it's not that that's the only piece, but it's the fact that they are all there. So when you look on the next slide, I've labeled everything. So I brought everything over, showed you where it's at so that you could see it. Again, what I want you to keep your attention on is this piece right here with the two purple dots. I'll connect them. This M shape is what I guess became the clue for me that I was going to possibly need to do this. Now, before I do this, I will also say you have to keep in mind, I've had a lot of conversations and questions about the coins and lining them up on the state lines and why is it not perfect? How do you explain that? Y'all, maps are generated in different ways. So if things can be off by a little bit because they're not all, you're not physically standing there doing it, you're using another representation. And John may have had a different representation than you're using. He may have used a different website. He may have used a different map of some kind. But the thing about this particular situation you have to realize is that when we are doing this, John only had a gridded word search to work with. So when he encoded this pathway into our word search, he could only move in straight line directions. So if things are not 100% perfect, that's because John didn't have the liberty to just draw on this word search anywhere he wanted to. He had to have you connecting the dots. So all of these trails become a bit more, I guess, jagged and line-like than they are on the map. But let's see what we got. So here is the map that I just copied from there and brought over to here in order to be able to line it up. Notice I've also kept the X in place when I did that rotation, that is mainly because I like to keep my eyes on that X. I mean, X has marked the spot for thousands of years, probably hundreds of thousands of years, for being the cue of where the answer is with a treasure hunt, or especially now that I'm also looking at a treasure map. So I did keep it there just because I want to make sure and keep my eyes on it. It was not part of the 4 things that that I counted for you originally, but I do like to keep that there. So there's my word search copied over, ready to go into an overlay. This is my actual boots on the ground footage. This came from our trip and one of the first times we went in. As you can see, I didn't do a lot of off-trail movement, and that is because I was in that first initial, where are we at, where are we going? I did leave in this area here and head up. That is where you go up to Van Sickle Waterfall. I wasn't going to go that far and not take a look at one of the prettiest places that it said, and also because of the cryptogram, strongest dream, I definitely had to take a look at Van Sickle Waterfall as well. So anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to overlay it on top of each other for you so that you can see. And again, there's your purple dots, and then you have the purple dots on there. And so that's how you're, I'm having you keep up with what you're seeing. So as you see the green in the background where we walk the trail, here's what I wanted you to notice. That is that shape that I told you to keep your eyes on. That, if you notice, looks very similar to what you see on the map there. Now, the Van Sickle Trail, the Van Sickle Rim Connector Trail is in blue. So it is actually with this purple, because at this point, that is the Van Sickle Rim Connector Trail, and it is going to lead way on out and head towards the connection of the Tahoe Rim, which is this here that you end up needing as well. So what I wanted to do is I want you to, let me move this so I can get that purple out of the way for you. So you can see the alignment that I spoke of. And so no, there's not a trail running down through here. I get that. The problem is, like I said, we can't have 100% alignment when he's trying to draw a map on a word search. If you notice, the state divider is very close to being the state line right there. It could be a small scaling issue on my part, but we pretty much have an alignment with certain pieces. But here's the thing that really nails it in for me, or that you'll see, is basically what's happening. All these colors are meeting right there. When you are boots on the ground, this is what's called the junction. And junction is also in our word search. And I'm going to show you the pictures so that you can see it for yourself in just a few minutes. But this is why this place becomes very important to me. And there's the word junction anagrammed into the word search, pretty close to that state line area, in that area of where we're looking at this map. We're right up here looking at the map, and you have a junction written in the word search as well, which is close to where we centered our rotation around. So with that being said, don't forget we also had the extra deep dive material that is not mandatory. It is the advanced player level, and Jon does not, and I have found enough information to lead to the location of the treasure in the easy version. But for those of us who like the extra challenge, there were some ciphers, there's some other things in there. I guess the biggest thing to understand is that it's all fun and games, but those were not required in order to get to a destination location for this box. They're just extra confirmation because it's all converging in the same area. So you'll recall that we had join paths or paths join, and then we had either X or mix, depending on how I looked at it, with the word point. Y'all, they all mean the same thing, because junctions in the word search, junctions already telling us that there are paths that can join. That's what a junction is. So although we were able to find extra words that confirmed what we were doing in the ciphers, they weren't required in order for us to understand that we need to be looking at this junction spot. Interesting connections along the trail that were on there that maybe I didn't notice before. I think I did talk to you about the waterline one already. So here's what I wanted to point out. So this is one picture This picture right here is one on the right. This on the left is, that's right next to it. I'm gonna enlarge this. This picture right here, that is of this waterfall and the Tahoe Rim Trail. This right here is the picture that comes from right back here. So I'm actually just enlarging it. All of these signs, but these signs are in the exact same place. So when you come up to this junction, it's like 4 other trails are meeting, the one you're on and 4 other ones. And so taking a look at which ones they are, the green dots, y'all, I've had to record this video 3 times. So the green dots you see on there, just ignore them. It's me pointing it out earlier and I couldn't remove it. But this is the California-Nevada Loop Trail. It is also right here. The reason there's 2 of them on the poles, if you see the pole, I'm taking a picture from the corner. One is on the right side of the pole, one is on the left side of the pole. You have the Van Sickle Connector Rim Trail in orange. That the diamond that you have there is the Van Sickle Waterfall Trail. And then I have also highlighted in green this Barn Trail. Now, this barn trail is important. It does become important to a secondary thing I have to go over with you. The barn trail is the trail in this connection area that is in forest green. And it's posted on the posts, and it's also posted on the trees. So as you can probably see where I'm going with this, it actually comes into play in the cryptogram. All right, so again, I'm going to take and pull this sign from the back right here, and we're going to take a look at it. So what's on this trail, or this sign? Well, on this sign, we have some very interesting ones. We have the Tahoe Rim Trail, which is the TRT. TRT, oh look, junction. Right here, we also have the secondary junction of the K2K and the Upper California Nevada Trail. So we have TRT, we have K2K, and if you look, there's the Van Sickle Rim Connector Trail. All the trails we just found in the word search are posted on the same sign in this location where they meet. This was also a picture just to show you that barn trail and how they put them on the trees. So this this is going to come into my solve with the forest green. But anyway, so the whole point of that was so that you understood why junction became important, and the fact that we have all of the trails that we are looking at in this word search on the same sign, sitting at a junction for all of these trails where they meet. Okay, so here is the overlay. The junction is right here. And as you can see, there's pink, yellow, blue. All of the colors are lined up right there. They're all connecting they're all overlapping right there. That is the junction. All right, so something else that became important. The day before I go to fly out, y'all, I pull up the Van Sickle Bi-State Park to complete the map you're looking at. This was my pre-journey map of, hey, this is where we're going and this is what we're gonna do. When I opened up their website and noticed that they closed trails the day before I left. This area you see in yellow is closed. It's part of the Van Sickle Rim Connector Trail. I had planned on going in right here. This was going to be my starting point because to get to the junction area right over here, this seems shorter than going all the way around because you can come right through here. Well, they closed that part down. Now, I'll say when I was there, most people were ignoring the fact that they were closed, but it was also like the first few days. They closed it on the 27th. I arrived on the 28th, and I was on the trail on the 29th. And so it only been a couple of days. They had it roped off. They had it blocked off. They had signs that said, don't go this way. People were still walking that way. So if you are looking to go to this area at any point in time, you need to know that area of the trail that's in yellow right there is closed until the fall of 2027. They are they're rebuilding the trail. They're connecting the K2K trail and bringing it on in right there. And they're also building some type of facility that they need. So there's going to be a lot of construction going over there for next year. But when I was doing my research, this is why I got so close. I was looking at these actual dots to the trail, and this part is closed. But I only needed to go to right here in order to be able to make sure I had access to this outlook. And so I was like, skin of my teeth. I'm not waiting until fall of 2027 to do this. So again, if you see all my calculations on the left, I was trying to calculate, well, how far is it from one thing to the other? Here is, I guess, the area. This is where I wanted to search. These are the things I wanted to search. Now, obviously, I couldn't search the whole thing. What you see at the top here, this is the outline of, roughly, the outline of the Van Sickle Bay State Park. And so that I took that, and that became this whole map right here that you're seeing. Then I also wanted to draw your attention to this area. This area right here is Martin's Peak. Now, I explained who Martin was previously and how I felt like he was connected. This is Martin, and this is Martin's Peak. And so it's very close to where we were. If you notice, you have to travel up to the gondola. You get off at the mid observation deck, and you can walk right out onto the trail there. So I'll give you some, this is one of the reasons that I also found Martin, besides the 15 or 20 reasons I've already given you that seem to connect with Martin Halley. When I went to research Martin's Peak to see, the trail, how long is it, where's it at? Most trail apps and information is in miles. So it's very short, so it's 0.2 miles. That's why you see 0.0 or 0.4 total, that would be in and out. But there was a trail app, and I meant to go back and look it up for you. If you just Google Martin's Peak Heavenly Resort, I think it's the second or third result when I did it on Google. It's like, I think it's yellow is the color of the icon for this trail map. But y'all, if you open that up, the Martin's Peak Trail is listed as 1,119 feet. 11, 19, and both 11 and 19 are in the word search. So again, I wouldn't hang my hat on any of these individually, but the fact that they're all converging was interesting to me. This is also traditionally indigenous territory for the Washoe tribe, and that was in the description for the trail. So I added this as a secondary place that I had to go see. When I set this up, my intention was this junction. Check out this overlook right here. I had full intentions of going to Van Sickle Waterfall, just because I'm not going to go there and not take a look at it. The Martin's Peak. So those were kind of my areas of great interest. Now, after I got there, another place became of great interest, and it wasn't one I had planned for, but it was one that had a lot of connections. And so I'm going to make some of those connections for you. This is the actual map that's posted on Van Sickle's website. So I actually kind of tried to overlay it. I was really just trying to figure out, am I okay in this corner? Because in this map, I could see that the Van Sickle Rim Trail was coming into the closed area. And then I saw the outlook. And so right there was where I needed to be able to get to. So it was kind of a toss-up, is am I going to be able to make it? But everything did work out fine. So the reason that the barn trail, that green trail, becomes something that I need to focus on, if you see this long line in the word search right here, that really long line anagrams to historical site. Also, there's a bit of a minesweep idea. If you look right here, if you had a C, that would be historical. Now, I found that interesting because I feel like one of the strategies of some ways you can work with this word search do involve a minesweep where you could replace letters. Either way, we have historical site in the word search. So there's a couple of historical sites. Martin's Peak is a historical site. The entire area is the Washoe tribe, and there's a lot of history with that. But this particular piece of information with the things that are highlighted here, I'm going to show you why this struck me as something I needed to pay attention to. So my husband and I were when we went to South Lake Tahoe, I wanted to take a helicopter ride. We booked a helicopter ride. We wanted to go over the Heavenly Resort. We wanted to go over the Van Sickle State Park area right there. We wanted to see if we could see Martin's Peak. There were several things. We wanted to look into that Emerald Bay area, see where that underwater trail was. We just wanted to see all this from the air. So when we arrived at the airport, we were a little bit early. We were the first flight out for the day. And y'all, arriving at an airport in South Lake Tahoe, I keep wanting to call it a private airstrip because there's no security. It's literally like you're walking into, I don't know, like a TJ Maxx or like a small little store, and really nice people there. My husband he went to the restroom, and I was standing there in this little foyer area, this little area where before you go into any of the offices that are right there. And I looked up and I saw something. I took a picture of it so you could see it. It was this huge piece of lacquered wood, and it has these numbers on it. And so it is intended to address the history over time. And I thought it was pretty unique. So you got like your rings on a tree. So this is when the tree was very young, and then the older it gets, the wider it gets. So I think that was the idea of creating this piece. So they have all these numbers, starting with 1 all the way through 29, 30, all the way through 30. And all of these are dates. And this piece underneath tells you what every one of those represents. It's history. It's basically traveling the history of South Lake Tahoe over time. And so I went ahead and enlarged this for you because there's one in particular that stood out to me. It's number 11. Imagine that. Number 11 in the word search. And then it's 1911. The year is 1911. 19 and 11 are in the word search. The U.S. Forest Service builds first ranger station in the Lake Tahoe Basin. And when I went to research information about this particular historical event, because I was shocked, how have I done all this research on this area and I've not seen this? I looked it up. And it started in 1911 was the project. It didn't complete until 1912, but they built the barn first, and then they moved into the barn and built the surrounding homes for some of the first park rangers that would be stationed there. And so this was the first one in the Tahoe Basin. Well, the date was interesting. The numbers are in the word search. I'm not gonna not check it out. So I did do some research, and so this is when the barn area and the barn trail became interesting to me, because it actually filled in some gaps with the cryptogram. So many people have asked, I want to know where you get how's the cryptogram work? Well, at the entrance of Van Sickle State Park, there's a huge rock that's carved that says Van Sickle State Park. Then you come to the barn area next. Right next to the barn area is a large field. This is where they used to put the horses out to graze while they were there at the barn. From strong to stream. This one, there's not an obvious flow of water, so I began to wonder, was there anything here? Right across from where, once you pass the barn and the field, the field is on your right. If you look to your left, there are 2 huge, gigantic water towers. I mean, they're 10 stories tall and bigger around than, like, I don't know, most of my neighborhood. Not really, but I mean, it's pretty big. So anyway, there's these huge, huge water tanks. And those water tanks then provide the water system line it's the utilities that were run underground for the snow machines. Now, there's a secondary, that is the reason that you saw the water line sign. So when I pointed out that water line sign for you earlier, that water line sign is marking those lines so that they know where they are. Now, they don't have a lot of them. I saw 2. It did make me wonder if there weren't more at some point in time because they're very old. The project to run that water system is almost 30 years old. In 1998, they filed the plans to run that utility system when they were working on that area and building that up. So that sign, I don't know how old that sign is, but it was very old. But so there's a couple of, I guess, from strong to stream. I know we have the water towers and we have the water system. The only other water in the area is Van Sickle Waterfall. It is not at Van Sickle Waterfall. Like, I did search the area pretty thoroughly, but I will tell you that is the main attraction in that area. And there are people constantly near that that site. A lot of the other places we were, it wasn't that crowded. Sometimes we weren't seeing anybody. Sometimes we'll see one or two people. Sometimes we might see a small group. But like, there weren't a lot of people except for when you get to the area that goes from that junction to Van Sickle Waterfall. So that is the strong to stream. Past tree and post to forest green. Green is the shared idea here. But guys, the green marker, that's what it looks like when it's on the trees. This is what it looks like when it's on the posts. And it is the only trail in this area that is marked with forest green color. All the other ones are orange and yellow and pink and red. There's all kinds of color, but the only one that's any shade of green that I saw, not just to mention that it does happen to be dark like the forest green, is the barn trail. Now, the barn trail is the trail that I took to get into the park, to start from the parking, or from, we actually walked up, or from the entrance of the park there. It says, arrive you now where beauty sheens. So there you are. This leads us to that first overlook where you can see, you when you get there, it's the first time you can see, when you're walking this trail, it's the first time that you can see the entire view of Lake Tahoe. It's over, under, in between. We are at that place. You would be standing on an overlook, under the gondola, and you are on the line, so you're between the states. So is it possible that it was that first overlook? Now, the barn area has a very significant detail, and that is something that I do want to, I guess I'll cover that before we move. Why am I focused on two places at once? Because you can walk through, and the cryptogram literally becomes step by step. It's a matter of whether you're taking, everything's coming at you really quickly, or whether you're taking a longer journey. Because if you go to that first overlook, you're only in, I think, a little over a quarter of a mile, maybe. If you go all the way to the second overlook, you're in a mile. And so whether it would all depend on the interpretation of where's the strong to stream. So if you want to wait till you actually pass that waterline sign that is still there, then that would make you on the longer trail. So it takes a little longer to get through the cryptogram itself. But here's why the barn trail is also very interesting to me. So the reason this became so interesting is because I'm going to show you the picture where I was standing right next to one of these cabins. The cabins are forest green. They're very old. They're kind of like your grandparents' house. They have porches on them where you can sit and watch the gondola cars go by. And the porches are rather small, so it might be better to put your lawn chairs in the front yard in order to be able to see and count the gondola cars. So here's a picture. My husband was sitting on the rail there. There's one of the cabins, and those, if you see that tiny little area, the porch is very small. The one next to me that you can't see on my right as I'm taking the picture has a porch the size you might could put two chairs on. But if you notice, there's the gondola cars going by. And so you could sit in your yard and count the cars. And that became undeniably something I was not willing to ignore. So this area, due to its history, due to its description of literally sitting in the front yard counting cars, became extremely interesting to me. So here's a picture just to kind of give you a visual. I am going to put the boots on the ground footage out. Y'all, that is going to take me some time to get together. I took a lot of video and I took a lot of pictures. I want to try and get them in order as you would encounter them on the trail so that you have the best representation that you can of how we walked through this trail. So from rock, that's the very beginning where you start with the Van Sickle rock. Shortly later, here's your field. And then here is your water towers. There's one, and then there's another one right over here. Those things are huge. You can see compared to the size of the trees how big they are. And then you have, so from there it becomes a question of which overlook are we going to. There's a quick route and there's a long route that could possibly be. From Strong, if you have to go all the way to the waterline sign that I actually saw to Stream, you're gonna go you're gonna go a long ways. I would say probably half a mile, maybe a little less than half a mile. But after you if you go the short route, right after you pass this, then the Stream part would have to be the underground pipes that go from this large water towers down to a much smaller, which would be more like a stream. It would come out of a faucet if it were hooked to your house, but it's hooked to the snowmaking machines. Past tree and post. So right after these towers, you come to this tree. This is the one I actually come to. This is a picture of the one you come to. And you have the posts along the way to Forest Green, and this is the Forest Green Barn Trail. Right after you pass that, within, I don't know, probably 200 feet, you are at the overlook. If you go the long route, you have to pass this water sign, which is about a half a mile past the water towers, or the water tanks. And then you come to the junction, which is where all of these signs are located. And of course, you pass the tree with the post on it as well. So but the tree with the single post on it. But then this is the area where all of them connect and come together at the junction. After you pass the junction, you're 200 feet from walking up to the vista, which is the second overlook. And so either way you do those, you're going to arrive where beauty sheens. You're going to see the view of Lake Tahoe. This is from the first overlook. As you can tell, you're not very high. You haven't ascended way up the mountain just yet. It's over, under, in between. So the two options are here. So if this is the first one, the rock is at the entrance of the trails. You could normally go this way or this way, but at this point, this part is closed. So you can't go over this way. So when you come in, you pass the barn. This is the field area. Then there's these two water towers. Then this green mark here is where the tree that was very specific right before you get to the overlook. And then here is the overlook. So at this point, you are under the gondola right here. Not directly under it, but the under is right beside you. You're on the overlook. And this is the state line, so you're literally right between the two states. So that would be your over, under, and in between. And John said you were closer to the over than the under while still in between. That's why you see the red mark there. That was the area of the trail that I focused on. Because if you were walking for the water line, now the water line's not until you get, that water line sign's not until you get here. Then the junction is over here. And then the second overlook is here. So it's literally a matter of, it could happen either way and things would still be in order. So this is the second trail, rock, field, tower, water towers, the water tanks. And then there's that first overlook. If you keep going, there's your water sign. That would be your water line sign, which is your stream. It trickles down to a stream of water. Here's your junction. And then you arrive at the second overlook. So honestly, either of them fit. But the barn area is what really did attract me, because I could not deny that the old houses are sitting there. They've got these split rail fences and signs up for you not to enter them. But if you were sitting in a lawn chair, those gondola cars are right in front of you. You could literally tally the cars as they go by, which I could not get over that part. So this is one map that literally gives you all of the things I've talked about in one map, so that you can see everything from the barn and the cabin area to the gondola. If you notice, look, gondola tower 12 is here, gondola tower 11 is there. So when I was showing you that picture just then by the cabins, I was right in this area. So I was at gondola tower 10 while I was looking at that particular gondola tower that I showed you a picture of. So another thing, so you've got several areas of places where I was looking. And so I guess on this map, it'd be probably easy enough for me to just go ahead and mark. Here's your barn area that I was interested in. Here is your lower overlook. There's your gondola tower 11 and 12 and your water line sign. Then you do have, if this water sign is your second stream part, then you're gonna have to keep going, come over here. Guys, here is your junction, and there is the second overlook. The junction is what really interests me. So I did search that second higher overlook pretty well, but none of these would I say I've searched well enough to mark them off the list. Y'all, I had 4 days. So we flew in on the first day and we did the altitude adjustments. We are from a much lower altitude, and I did not want to ascend up the mountain in the altitude immediately. So the first day that we got there really late, I think we got there about midnight. And so by the time we took the flights all the way to Reno, got the rental car, drove an hour down, we were close to midnight getting checked in. So the next day we ate breakfast, we adjusted most of the morning, and we just took that first walk where I showed you I didn't go off trail, just to acclimate to the area and see the things that we could. I didn't even ascend up to the, here is Martin's Peak. Martin's Peak is going to be right up here. It's a little further away from this map, from the way that this map shows it. But I didn't even want to ascend up to Martin's Peak, which is close to about 8,000 to 9,000 feet of altitude. I know this says more like this, but it's closer to 9,000 feet of altitude. And we were down in like the 6,000, but we're used to living on the Gulf Coast. So we didn't even ascend to Martin's Peak until the third day that that would have been day 2 that we did this. Day 3 was when we went up to Martin's Peak. So I did not have sufficient time to grid search in a way that I would say any of these could I have marked off the list. So at this point, I think that if I were going to go back, I would definitely need to research all of these areas. I wouldn't mark any of them off the list. So then something occurred to me. This is after I got back. He talks about that excel. I thought that you could excel at, and I noticed he said, I am pretty sure you can excel at, just don't get upset. I realized the words excel could mean the X cell of the word search. And then it says, don't upset. I might not should have carried it around to the top side. So I got to looking at this map. This is where it ended up because I did attach it to the rotation. But if it says excel, don't upset, that would mean leave it. That would not be something as part of the rotation. And if that is the case, then that location is going to be down here where it would be. See, it's up here. A 180-degree rotation would put it directly across that line. It's going to be a little further. It'd probably actually put it like right here. That is Martin's Peak, y'all. That's where Martin's Peak, if you remember the map that I showed you here. So if it ended up being somewhere up in here, I actually did go and look in that area as well. But if I had not have rotated it, Martin's Peak would actually have been much more important. So I do think that Martin's Peak, I will just tell you, Martin's Peak is rough. As far as there are a lot of rocks, y'all. The number of rocks at Martin's Peak, there are billions of rocks in that area. There are more rocks at Martin's Peak, the actual peak point. There's more rocks there than you would encounter on the entire Cheaha Mountain in Alabama, which is where I'm from, the highest point originally. I'm from there. And so the amount of rocks is overwhelming. I actually looked at my husband at some point and I said, this is where you had a treasure when you don't want somebody to find it. And so Martin's Peak, if you were going to search that area, would take a lot of effort. It's not necessarily hard. It's just a lot of rocks. A couple other things I'll point out. Martin's Peak is only open during the summer hiking season. You cannot access Martin's Peak during the snow skiing season, because that, if you look at, I'll take you back one more and show you. If you look at Martin's Peak, do you see this white line that goes right here? That is actually a administrative road, which they turn into some of the cross-country ski trails, and it goes right there close to where Martin's Peak is. You cannot access Martin's Peak when the snow is on the ground, because you would be crossing trails that people are skiing on, so you're not allowed to walk that trail. Is that why Jon said you would not be able to find the treasure if there was a layer of snow on the ground? Because if there's a layer of snow on the ground, you are not allowed to walk along, well, you're not allowed to do Martin's Peak Trail. It will close somewhere in, I think, late September before you get into early October. And so it's only open for a little while. That's why I've been working hard to try to get you this information. If you live there and you are familiar with this area, or if you want to go hike it, you're going to have to get out there quick with Martin's Peak, because Martin's Peak is going to close. So continuing on, the last pieces of information that I may have for you. So I basically took a map of South Lake Tahoe so I could show you where everything was that I've spoken about on a map, so that it makes it, it orients it for you. So this little area right here, that is Emerald Bay State Park. That's going to be where that underwater collection of boats, the treasures that are at the bottom, that's where that's going to be. Now, this is not where I think the treasure is. This is where Jon has specifically mentioned, or something that directly connected to it that I found. So these are locations that I felt like were put in there for to get us to South Lake Tahoe area. You have State Line, which is there. Of course, that is the state line I have highlighted. This green up here, this is the Tahoe Basin Management Dispatch Center. So this is for the South Lake Tahoe management system. If you look here, this is your Van Sickle area. So just to mark a couple things, if trying to do it as to scale, if this were the entrance to the state park area, then you would have the barn stuff area in here. You're going to have that first overlook. You're going to have the water sign. You're going to have the junction, and then you're going to have the second overlook, which would put Gondola Tower 12 right about here. Gondola Tower 11 right about there. And Gondola Tower 10, which is the one where I was looking at from the cabins. So just in the referencing those, Martin's Peak is going to be somewhere right in here, maybe right in here, somewhere in this area, right in here is where you'd see Martin's Peak. So those are the areas that I think are important that Jon has, that I feel like has connections to the word search directly. If I were going to resurface out there at some point, these are the two things that I would focus on. That Van Sickle area, and I really can't rule out any one of them, because even though I did go and look, I was not able to grid search the locations that I felt like I needed to within that time frame. Also, just from the other map, if you want me to show you some of the other things, when we talked about the Tahoe Keys Marina, that Tahoe Keys Marina is right in here. So, and then you've got the airport that's going to be back this way some. There's the airstrip back there. I'm trying to think of anything else that would help with, as far as orienting, as far as where we are. Those are most of the landmarks I think that he covered, or that he alluded to in this. We did talk about that Squaw Valley, which is now Olympic Valley. You can see that right up here. And then this is Incline Village up here in this area. I think this is where like the Monkey Rock is located. So just in giving you bearings about the area, if you know anything about the area, or if you've been in Tahoe with this search, then I'm just giving you a way to kind of orient everything. So again, those are the things that I think are important. There is one more piece of information that I think is important or is applicable to this, and that is in the line, it said, we had remember the window that's over here. I want you to look in the dead center line right here. First thing I want to point out, I've told you I was going to do this and I never did. Elon Musk, ELONMUSK. There's Elon Musk right there. Elon Musk is applicable a little bit to Lake Tahoe. If you remember, he personally is not, but the book represents it talks about Oasis being a $1 billion company, and it also talks about and then we talked about the wealthiness of the people there, and there is a SpaceX former board member who owns a house in Lake Tahoe. I guess it's kind of one of the popular famous things that are there. So anyway, I just thought it was neat being that, kind of unique being that Elon Musk is also in our word search in a snake format right there. Take it or leave it. It doesn't change anything. But this line in particular, I do want to focus on, because what I see in this line, this is the dead center, right, of everything. And what I see right here is special. That was your bends and turns, right? It was your special bends and turns. Special, STONE, peak. Special Stone Peak. And in my opinion, that could be pointing towards Martin's Peak. All right, I think that's pretty much everything that I have. I hope that you've enjoyed the presentation, and I hope that you now understand why I am fully convinced that the past and future box is in fact in South Lake Tahoe. And if you're able to find a box with my information, please get in touch with me. I would love to have you come on the show. I would love to discuss exactly how you were able to put the things together and actually put the boots on the ground, because the boots on the ground is a hard part of this. So I enjoyed coming up with the solve itself. I enjoyed my boots on the ground, but there's still work to be done, and I would love to have you come on the show and talk about how we made this happen if you're able to do it. So until next time, keep questioning, keep testing, and keep searching for the treasure inside. And hey, let's go find this treasure, y'all.